And then there's this word privilege. This is, I'm sure most, if not all of us have heard this word around privilege, at least is how we use it in recent times. And so I kind of define it as, groups of people with one or more identities that socially, politically, religiously, etc., afford them the freedom of normativity. Even though everyone in the group may experience tremendous hardships and other situations that would seem disadvantaged, many of the benefits, even as simple as the freedom from systemic societal barriers, are solely based on the randomness of the circumstances of their birth. And I purposely decided to like define it in this way because the word privilege, the way we've always known it before recent years, is like this idea that privilege is something you get bonus, right? Like this is something extra you get. And so when you're in for example, like white folk who are impoverished, or other folk who maybe have like a few privileged identities but are otherwise disadvantaged in other ways, will kind of argue with this idea that, well, I'm not privileged, I struggle too. Well, really, this idea of privilege means that your starting point is ahead of others whose starting points, you know, um, can't even reach where you are, like is a base level. And so it's not about having something extra necessarily as much as it is you get to start at zero while everyone else starts at negative. And then that compounds, right? If you have more than one not privileged identity, which is then the next slide I want to talk about, is minoritized. And so this I describe as more commonly known in culture as minorities. There are groups of people with one or more identities that are routinely and systemically disadvantaged, often in violent and death-dealing ways, and they're portrayed and considered negatively or inferior. I use this term in the stylings of a verb to keep the focus on the actions of the oppressor through systems, laws, beliefs, narratives, etc., that disempower large groups of people. Oftentimes, minoritized people are not in the minority. And one real quick, easy example of that is, in South Africa, for example, when white folk came and colonized South Africa, um, they were not in in population wise, they were not in the majority, right? They were the minority, but they created these systems and laws and practices that divided Black folk, right? And then created, so they were minoritizing people so that now, they were in the minority because of all the subgroups they created. Um, even though population wise, they were the minority. I hope that makes sense.